The desert at night was a wide, silent ocean of sand. The wind moved softly, carrying only the whisper of dry earth and faraway stars. Dr. Michael Harris drove his old pickup truck along the empty highway, the headlights cutting two narrow paths of light through the darkness. He had been returning from a small town where he fixed machines for farmers. For most people, it was a dull life. For Michael, it was peaceful. He had once been a NASA engineer, a man who dreamed of space and discovery, but after his wife Emily passed away 5 years ago, the stars had lost their shine. He left the city, the labs, and the noise of people who tried to comfort him with words that never worked. Out here he could live quietly, fixing engines and radios, surrounded by silence. That night, however, something strange disturbed his calm. His radio, which usually played old country songs, began to hiss with static. The truck's lights flickered and the engine made a low hum that wasn't normal. Michael frowned, tapping the dashboard. "Not again," he muttered. He pulled over and stepped out to check the hood. The air felt colder than usual, though it was a summer night. The stars above seemed brighter, almost trembling. Then from the corner of his eye he saw a light streak across the sky, blue and green, not like any plane or shooting star. It moved too fast, then stopped suddenly, hanging in the air before dropping straight down beyond the hills. Michael froze for a moment. He had worked with satellites and space instruments long enough to know that what he saw was not normal. Curiosity tugged at him, the same curiosity that once sent him chasing comets and equations. He got back into the truck and turned toward the glow. As he drove closer, the smell of something metallic filled the air, like burnt wire and rain. The ground shook lightly under his tires. A few minutes later he saw it, a small crater in the sand glowing faintly with pale blue light. His heart pounded. He stopped the truck, grabbed his flashlight, and walked forward slowly. At first it looked like a broken piece of a machine. It was silver, smooth, and round, half buried in sand. Thin streams of smoke rose from cracks along its surface. Michael's engineer mind started racing. What kind of alloy could shine like that without melting? But before he could think further, he heard it, a soft sound, like a whimper. He turned his flashlight toward it and gasped. Something small was crawling out from behind the wreck. It looked like a child, tiny, maybe 8 or 9 years old, but not human. Its skin glowed faintly blue under the moonlight, and its eyes were large and clear like crystal. Michael's first thought was to run. But when the creature looked up at him, trembling and frightened, he couldn't move. It wasn't a monster, it was just scared. Its voice came out weak and broken, struggling to form words. "Please, help my mother." Michael's hand shook, but he knelt slowly to show he meant no harm. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." The child tilted its head as if trying to understand his words. Then it pointed back at the wreck and whispered again. "Mother, hurt, please." Michael's heart softened. He looked around but saw no one else. The crash had clearly been small, yet the idea that more of these beings might be hurt somewhere made him anxious. He had helped people trapped in machines before. This didn't feel so different. He reached out a careful hand. "Can you walk?" The little one nodded weakly. When Michael touched its arm, he was surprised. It was warm, soft and trembling like a human child's skin. "All right," he said, steadying his voice. "Let's get you out of the cold first." He guided the child toward his truck. The creature looked around, frightened by the dark shapes of rocks and desert shrubs clinging to Michael's sleeve. When they reached the vehicle, Michael wrapped a blanket around it and set it gently in the passenger seat. The child blinked at the dashboard lights, whispering something in its own language. Michael started the engine and turned toward his small workshop about 10 miles away. The road was empty, the only sound the hum of the truck and the faint breathing of the strange little being beside him. After a few minutes, the child spoke again in a thin, trembling voice. "You are human?" Michael hesitated, then smiled slightly. "Yes, I'm human." The child nodded slowly as if memorizing the word. "Humankind." He felt an ache in his chest. No one had called him that in years. "What's your name?" he asked. The child frowned, searching for the right sound. "Lyra," it said finally. "I am Lyra." "That's a beautiful name," Michael said quietly. "I'm Michael." "Cal," Lyra repeated, the words soft and musical. "Mikal, good." For the first time in a long while, Michael smiled for real. When they arrived at his workshop, he helped Lyra inside. The place was small but warm, filled with tools, books, and a large telescope standing by the window. Lyra's eyes widened when she saw it. She pointed at the telescope, then at the stars outside, and whispered, "Home." Michael nodded gently. "You came from up there, didn't you?" Lyra didn't answer, only looked down, her small hands tightening around the blanket. He didn't push further. He gave her water and let her rest on a small couch. For hours he sat nearby, unable to sleep. He tried to make sense of what had happened. A crash, a strange craft, a child who spoke English words. None of it fit any logic he knew, yet his heart told him it was real. As dawn began to rise, Michael stepped outside for air. The desert was quiet again, painted gold by the morning sun. He looked toward the horizon where the wreck had been. Part of him wanted to call someone. Authorities, scientists, anyone who could explain. But when he thought of Lyra's frightened face, he decided otherwise. Whoever she was, she needed safety, not questions. Inside, Lyra was awake, watching the sunlight on the floor. When Michael entered, she smiled weakly. "Thank you, Mikhail," she said. Then her eyes filled with tears. Mother, still there. Michael's heart sank. The wreck wasn't empty after all. Someone, her mother, was still out there, maybe alive. He knelt beside her. "We'll find her," he said softly. "I promise." The child looked up, hope flickering in her clear blue eyes. And in that moment, something changed inside Michael Harris. The man who had once turned away from the stars now felt their call again. Not as a scientist, but as a man who had found a reason to care once more. The morning sun rose gently over the desert, painting the sand in shades of gold and rose. Dr. Michael Harris stood at the doorway of his small workshop, his mind full of questions he could not answer. Inside, the alien child, Lyra, sat quietly on the couch holding a cup of warm milk in both hands. She looked tiny and fragile, wrapped in one of Michael's old blankets. Michael watched her for a moment. Her eyes were large and soft, the color of ocean light. She looked like a child lost far from home, and that was exactly what she was. He wanted to help her find her mother, just as he had promised. But how? The desert was huge, and the wrecked ship could have broken into many pieces. Still, something inside him told him he had to try. He couldn't turn away. Michael spent the next hour packing what he might need. A few tools, some food, water, and a small device that could detect heat or movement. Lyra watched him with quiet curiosity. When he was done, he knelt beside her. "Lyra," he said gently, "we're going to find your mother. But you must stay close to me, all right?" She nodded, her face full of trust. "Yes, Mikhail, I stay with you." Her way of saying his name, Mikhail, always made him smile. It sounded softer, kinder. They left the workshop just after sunrise. The desert stretched endlessly, but Michael knew the direction where the light had fallen the night before. He drove slowly, his eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of metal or smoke. Lyra sat beside him, quiet but alert. Every few minutes she would point to the sky or whisper something in her own language. It sounded like music, gentle and full of feeling. Michael couldn't understand the words, but he felt their meaning. It was the sound of hope. After about an hour, they reached a rocky area where the sand turned into uneven stone. Michael stopped the truck. "We'll have to walk from here," he said. Lyra climbed down carefully, holding his hand. The ground was warm under their feet, and the wind carried a faint humming sound. It was almost like a song coming from deep below the earth. Michael followed the sound, leading Lyra between two large boulders. And then they saw it, a part of the crashed ship half buried in the sand, glowing faintly with the same blue light as before. Lyra gasped. "Mother, near." Michael's heart beat faster. He moved closer, checking for any danger. The metal was cracked but not burning anymore. There were strange symbols on it that looked like flowing water. He called out softly, "Hello? Is anyone here?" At first there was silence. Then a weak, gentle voice answered, not in English, but in the same language Lyra spoke. Lyra's eyes lit up. She ran a few steps forward, then stopped as if waiting for Michael's approval. He nodded. "Go ahead, but be careful." Lyra rushed to the side of the wreck, touching the smooth metal. It opened slightly with a low sound, and a faint mist rose from inside. Michael stepped closer, and there she was. Inside lay a tall woman, or at least something close to a woman. Her skin was a lighter shade of blue than Lyra's, her hair silver like moonlight. She was breathing, but her movements were slow. Lyra knelt beside her. "Mother," she cried softly. The woman opened her eyes, bright and gentle, and looked at her daughter. Then she saw Michael standing at the entrance. For a moment, fear flickered in her gaze. She tried to sit up, weakly protecting Lyra with her arm. Michael quickly raised both his hands. "It's all right," he said calmly. "I'm not here to hurt you. I just want to help." Lyra turned to her mother and spoke a few words. The woman's tense expression softened slightly. She looked tired but seemed to understand. With Michael's help, they lifted her from the wreck and carried her carefully to the truck. She was light, almost weightless, and her body gave off a faint warmth that felt strange but comforting. Back at the workshop, Michael made a small bed for her using clean sheets and blankets. Lyra stayed beside her the whole time, holding her hand and whispering softly. Michael watched them, wondering what their lives had been like before this crash. After resting for a while, the woman opened her eyes again. She looked at Michael with quiet gratitude. Her voice was soft when she spoke, broken but clear. "You human?" Michael nodded. "Yes, my name is Michael Harris." She tried to repeat it. "Mikal." Then she smiled faintly. "Thank you, Mikal." Her smile was gentle but full of sadness. Michael didn't know what to say. He had so many questions, but he didn't want to overwhelm her. Instead, he brought her some water and watched as she took slow sips. After a moment, she looked at him again and said a name. "Elara." She pointed to herself. He understood. It was her name. "Elara," he repeated. "It's nice to meet you." Lyra smiled proudly. "Mother Elara," she said, hugging her gently. For the first time since the crash, there was a small sense of peace in the air. That night, Michael couldn't sleep. He sat by his window looking at the stars. The same stars he once studied as numbers and coordinates now seemed full of stories. Stories he could never have imagined. He thought about Elara and Lyra, about how they had come from another world, running from something, perhaps searching for safety. He didn't know why fate had brought them to him, but he felt it had meaning. In the next room, he could hear Lyra humming softly to her mother. It was a sweet, peaceful sound. He smiled, feeling a warmth he hadn't felt in years, the warmth of a home. When dawn arrived, Michael began making plans. He needed to hide the wreckage before someone found it. The desert wasn't far from an Air Force testing area, and if anyone noticed strange lights or metal pieces, they would come searching. He also needed to find a way to help Elara recover. She was still weak, and her skin sometimes flickered with light when she coughed, a sign, he thought, of some energy imbalance. He decided to build a small shelter beneath his workshop, using old parts and panels he had saved from previous projects. Lyra helped him, handing him tools and asking questions in her sweet, curious way. She learned words quickly. Tool, water, safe, light. Her laughter filled the air as she tried to pronounce them. By the third day, the shelter was ready. It wasn't perfect, but it was safe and hidden from the outside world. Michael brought Elara down carefully, making sure she was comfortable. She looked around the small space, warm light, soft blankets, and her daughter's smile, and then turned to Michael. Her eyes shone like morning dew. "You protect," she said slowly, searching for the right words. "You kind human." Michael shook his head humbly. "Just trying to do what's right." Lyra looked up at him, her small hand reaching for his. "Mikal is family," she said softly. The words touched him deeply. He smiled, but said nothing. Outside, the desert wind blew softly against the walls, carrying the song of distant stars. For the first time in a long time, Michael Harris didn't feel alone. Days passed quietly in the desert. Dr. Michael Harris had turned his small workshop into a secret refuge. Beneath it, hidden from the world, Elara and her daughter Lyra slowly began to recover. The strange blue glow that had once surrounded them was now faint and soft, like the light of the moon. Michael had never thought his lonely home would become a shelter for visitors from another world. But somehow it felt right. He no longer woke up to silence. He could hear Lyra's soft laughter in the mornings or her gentle voice calling, "Mikal, breakfast light come." As sunlight slipped through the window cracks, Elara grew stronger each day. Her wounds healed faster than human injuries, leaving behind only faint silver lines. Her movements became smoother, her voice clearer. Though her accent was still unusual, she began to speak English more easily. Thanks to Lyra's help, Michael would often come downstairs to find Ilara studying his tools or touching the metal walls, whispering softly in her language. Sometimes she would draw shapes in the air, shining patterns that disappeared like smoke. When he asked what they meant, she said gently, "Memories of home." Michael nodded, not wanting to disturb her thoughts. He often wondered what kind of world they had come from, what their sky looked like, what kind of people lived there. But he never pushed her to talk about it. He knew that pain in any world took time to heal. One evening, as the sun sank behind the dunes, Michael sat outside fixing a small generator. Lyra sat nearby watching the glowing horizon. "Mikal," she said softly, "our world, very far, but sky same." Michael smiled. "Yes, the sky connects everything. Maybe your people and mine look at the same stars." She nodded. "Mother say stars remember." He paused, touched by her words. "Your mother is wise." Lyra's eyes sparkled. "Mother is strong, but heart sad. She miss father." Michael looked at her gently. "Your father?" She nodded slowly, her face falling. "He'd not come back. Lost when our world dark." Michael didn't ask more. He could see the sadness in her eyes. He handed her a small screwdriver, and she tried to help him with the generator, her tiny hands fumbling but eager. In that moment, Michael realized how much Lyra reminded him of the daughter he and Emily had once dreamed of having. Later that night, Ilara came up to the workshop. Her silver-blue skin reflected the soft glow of the lamps. She watched Michael quietly as he worked. "You help much," she said. "Fix everything," Michael laughed lightly. "I try my best. Machines I understand, people, not always." Ilara tilted her head. "But you understand heart." He looked up, surprised by her words. Her tone was simple, but her meaning was deep. He didn't know how to answer, so he just nodded. Ilara smiled faintly. "Lyra safe. Because of you. She's a wonderful kid," he said warmly. "Strong, kind, and very brave." Ilara looked down, her eyes soft. "She is hope of our world. I wish she'd grow in peace." "You both deserve peace," Michael said quietly. For a few seconds they stood in silence. The wind outside brushed against the walls. There was something gentle and unspoken between them, something that didn't need words. Over the next few days, Michael helped Ilara repair a small piece of her ship that Lyra had recovered from the crash site. It was a glowing crystal-like engine core that pulsed faintly when touched. Michael studied it carefully, fascinated by the technology. "It's alive," he murmured one day, watching the soft rhythm of the light. Ilara nodded. "It breathes energy. Like heart of ship. Can it be fixed?" She hesitated. "Yes, but need power. Sun and metal of Earth can heal slowly, but not forever safe." Michael frowned. "You mean the government might find us?" Ilara didn't answer directly, but her eyes said enough. She had seen fear before, the kind that came from being hunted even across galaxies. So Michael began taking extra precautions. He kept the lights dim at night, used a generator instead of the main power line, and drove to town only when necessary. He told people he was working on an old experiment and needed privacy. It wasn't a lie, just not the whole truth. One morning, Lyra came running to him with excitement. "Mikal, Mother walk outside today." He followed her, smiling, and found Ilara standing in the open air for the first time since the crash. The golden sunlight touched her skin, making it shimmer faintly. She breathed in deeply, her face calm and full of wonder. "This world," she said softly. "So alive." Michael nodded. "It is. Sometimes we forget to notice." She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the morning sky. "You notice? That is why stars sent us to you." Her words made him pause. Did she really believe that? That fate, or perhaps the stars, had chosen him? He didn't know. But somehow deep down it felt true. As the days passed, a strange peace filled Michael's home. The nights no longer felt empty. They ate together, shared stories, and even laughed. Ilara learned to cook small human meals, though she found the taste of coffee amusing. Lyra painted pictures using colored sand, filling the walls with bright shapes and stars. One evening after dinner, they all sat by the window watching the moon rise. Lyra suddenly turned to Michael, her face serious. "Mikal," she said softly, "please marry my mom." Michael almost dropped his cup. "What?" Ilara blinked, clearly surprised too. "Lyra," she began, but the child went on earnestly. "Please marry my mom. She has no one else." Her voice was gentle but full of emotion. You kind, you help, you make her smile again. I see it. Alara looked down, her cheeks glowing faintly with blue light. Lyra, it not so simple, she whispered. But Lyra shook her head. Simple, heart knows. My father gone, mother lonely. You lonely, together happy. Michael didn't know what to say. The child's words touched something deep inside him, the part that had been empty for years. He looked at Alara. She was silent, her eyes soft but unsure. I don't know what to say, he murmured at last. You both came from the stars. I'm just a man who fixes machines. Alara looked up slowly. Machines can be fixed. Hearts too. The silence that followed was gentle, filled only with the sound of the wind and Lyra's quiet breathing. Michael smiled sadly. Maybe one day, he said softly. Lyra nodded as if she understood. One day soon, she whispered, curling beside her mother. That night, long after they slept, Michael stood outside under the vast desert sky. The stars shone like tiny fires above him. He thought of Emily, of his lost years, and of how life had somehow given him a second chance. Not in the way he expected, but in a way that felt right. He looked up at the heavens and whispered, Thank you for sending them. The stars seemed to twinkle brighter, as if they heard him, and somewhere behind him in the soft glow of the workshop window, Alara stood quietly watching him, her heart full of gratitude and something she could no longer hide. The days in the desert grew warmer, and the nights quieter. Dr. Michael Harris had almost forgotten what loneliness felt like. Each morning began with the smell of hot sand and the sound of Lyra's soft laughter echoing through the workshop. Her voice was like sunlight in the silent place he had once called empty. Alara was healing well. She now walked outside each day, letting the wind play with her silver hair. Her strength returned slowly, but she still looked at the sky with distant eyes, as if she were listening for someone calling her name from far beyond the clouds. Michael watched her often, though he tried not to let it show. He admired her calm grace, her gentle way of speaking, and the kindness in her eyes. He didn't understand everything about her world, but he understood her heart, and that was enough. One evening, as the sun fell low, Alara joined Michael in the workshop. He was repairing an old radio that had started to buzz again. She stood beside him quietly, her soft light glowing in the dim room. You always fix broken things, she said. Michael smiled. It's what I do best, even hearts? She asked. He looked up. Her tone was not teasing. It was sincere, hopeful, yet uncertain. I'm trying, he said softly. Some hearts take more time. Alara nodded, her eyes thoughtful. Then she looked at the radio. When your world finds strange light in sky, what happened? They investigate, Michael said after a moment. Scientists, military, people come asking questions. She grew quiet. He saw a shadow of worry cross her face. Then we must hide more. Michael had been thinking the same. He had noticed planes passing overhead more often. At night, faint lights flickered near the horizon, searchlights perhaps. Someone was looking for something. The next day, Michael drove into town for supplies. At the small gas station, two men in uniform stood near the counter talking in low voices. He overheard them mention unidentified energy and satellite images. His heart tightened. They were close. He bought food, tools, and fuel quickly, then returned home by a different road. When he arrived, Lyra ran out to greet him. Her eyes sparkled, but he noticed the faint trembling in her hands. Everything all right? He asked gently. She nodded, but her gaze flicked toward the hills. Strange sound come from sky, she said. Mother say stay inside. Michael looked up. The sky was clear, yet he could feel a quiet hum in the air. Something electrical, almost like a storm that hadn't arrived yet. He took a deep breath. Don't worry, he said. We'll keep you safe. That night he gathered Alara and Lyra in the underground shelter. The air was cool and smelled faintly of metal. Alara sat beside him, holding Lyra close. They're searching for you, he said quietly. I heard them in town. They know something fell from the sky. Alara lowered her head. I feared this. They will not stop. Michael rubbed his forehead. There might be another way. If we repair your ship's heart, you could leave before they find you. Lyra gasped. Leave? Her voice was full of both hope and fear. Alara looked at her daughter tenderly. Lyra, we can go home, to stars, but Mikal, Lyra whispered, turning to him. You come too? Michael felt his chest tighten. He wished he could say yes, but he knew it wasn't possible. The stars were hers, not his. He managed a small smile. I can't go where you're from, but I'll help you get there. Elara touched his hand lightly. Your heart already knows stars, she said. Her eyes glowed softly in the dim light. Maybe one day your world will be ready. For the next few days, Michael and Elara worked side by side repairing the crystal engine. He brought tools and solar panels. She guided him on how to align the inner rings that held the light inside. When they finished, the crystal pulsed gently like a living heartbeat. It will fly again, Elara said softly, but we must wait for the night. The light must not be seen. Michael nodded, though his heart felt heavy. The thought of them leaving filled him with quiet sadness. He tried to hide it, but Elara seemed to sense it. That evening, as Lyra slept, Elara came to him outside. The moon painted her face in silver light. You have kind eyes, she said. You gave us safety. Why help strangers? Michael looked at her for a long moment. Because you weren't strangers, he said. The moment I found Lyra, I saw a child who needed help. And when I met you, I saw someone who carried too much sorrow. I guess I just didn't want to lose more people. Elara's eyes softened. You lost someone? He nodded. My wife. Long ago. I'm sorry, she whispered. Then very quietly, she would be proud. You gave love again. Her words made him look away, but he couldn't hide the small smile that formed on his lips. The next night, as they prepared to power the ship, a faint rumble came from the distance and the sound of engines. Michael looked toward the horizon and saw faint lights moving. He realized they didn't have much time. Elara, he said. They're closer than I thought. We have to go now. Elara turned to the ship, her hands moving gracefully over the controls. The crystal glowed brighter, filling the cave with blue light. Lyra clung to Michael's arm. Come, Mikal, she cried. Come with us. Michael knelt beside her, smiling sadly. I can't, little one. This is your journey. You and your mother need to be safe. Tears filled her bright eyes. Then we stay. Elara touched her shoulder gently. No, my light, we must go. He gave us this chance. Michael helped them into the small craft. The light from the crystal surrounded them, warm and peaceful. Elara looked at him one last time. You could come, she said softly. He shook his head. My home is here, but I'll always look for your star. Elara's lips curved in a faint smile. Then look east before dawn. We will send you light. The hum grew louder. The craft lifted slightly, sand swirling around their feet. Michael stepped back, shielding his eyes. But suddenly the glow faded. Elara looked confused. The heart stops, she murmured. The crystal dimmed. Michael hurried forward. What's wrong? She touched the crystal. It chooses not to go. It feels this place alive. It wants rest. Lyra turned to her mother, whispering, We stay? Elara looked at Michael, her eyes calm now. Perhaps stars did not send us to return. Perhaps they sent us to begin again. When morning came, the desert was silent once more. There was no sound of engines, no sign of the searchers. The ship lay hidden beneath the sand, its light sleeping peacefully. Michael stood beside Elara, watching the sunrise. Lyra ran ahead, laughing softly as the wind lifted her hair. Elara looked at him. You gave us home, she said. Now we stay and live as your people live, in quiet, kind, unseen. Michael smiled. You'll fit right in. For a long moment they stood together in the warm light. Two worlds joined not by science or power, but by care. The choice had been made, not by fear, but by love. And as the new day rose over the desert, Michael felt peace for the first time in years. He had looked to the stars his whole life, but only now did he realize, sometimes the stars come to you. The desert looked different now. What was once an empty, silent land had become a place full of quiet life, laughter, warmth, and light. It had been several weeks since Elara and Lyra decided to stay. Their damaged ship was buried deep under the sand, its glowing crystal now resting in calm sleep. No one knew it was there. The soldiers who had searched the area never found anything unusual. The wind had covered every trace, as if the desert itself wanted to keep their secret safe. Dr. Michael Harris's home had changed too. The lonely workshop, which once echoed only with the sound of machines, now carried soft voices and the smell of fresh bread that Elara learned to bake. Lyra had turned one corner of the workshop into her own little space, filled with drawings of stars. Suns and smiling faces. Michael often found her humming quietly as she drew, sometimes singing in her language, songs that sounded like light floating through the air. One calm morning, Michael sat outside repairing an old windmill. The air was warm and the wind played softly with the dry grass. Lyra ran around, chasing tiny desert birds. Ilara stood by the doorway, her silver hair glowing in the sun. "Earth feels gentle now," she said with a smile. Michael looked up. "You're getting used to it?" She nodded. "Yes, your world has kind silence. Not empty, I'm just waiting." He smiled at her words. That was exactly how he had felt before they came. Empty, but waiting for something he didn't know he needed. "You seem happy here," he said. Alara looked at the horizon. "We are, but sometimes I still listen for the stars." Michael's gaze followed hers. The sky was endless and blue, but he knew she was right. Some memories never fade, no matter how far you travel. That night, they all sat outside watching the sky. The stars above looked brighter than ever. Lyra pointed to one that sparkled gently. "Home," she said softly. "That one. It used to sing to me." Michael watched the tiny light, imagining a world full of glowing trees, silver lakes, and skies that never turned dark. "Do you miss it?" he asked her. Lyra thought for a moment. "Sometimes, but I like it here too. Sky is big and sand is warm and—" She smiled. "You are here." Her words warmed his heart. He looked at Alara. She was watching the stars too, her face peaceful but thoughtful. Later, when Lyra had fallen asleep, Alara spoke quietly. "There may come a day when our people return to search for us." Michael nodded. "I thought about that too. What will you do if they find you?" She looked at him gently. "If they come with peace, I will show them this world's kindness. If they come with fear, I will show them hope." He smiled faintly. "That sounds like something Lyra would say." "She learns from you," Alara said warmly. "You taught her how to see light in every broken thing." Michael felt a quiet pride, though he didn't say it aloud. Days turned into weeks. Life found a calm rhythm. Michael repaired old machines for nearby farms while Alara tended a small garden they had planted behind the workshop. Strange blue flowers had started growing there, flowers that hadn't existed on Earth before. Lyra called them star petals. "They listen to the sky," she said. "They grow when stars smile." Michael didn't argue. He had seen stranger things. The flowers glowed softly at night, just like Alara and Lyra's skin. It was as if a small piece of their world had taken root in his. One evening, as the sun set, Michael noticed Alara standing by the garden, holding one of the glowing flowers in her hand. Her expression was thoughtful. "You're quiet tonight," he said as he walked up beside her. She looked at him. "The stars called my name again." He frowned gently. "What do you mean?" "I felt their voice, soft like wind," she said. "They know we are alive. They may come soon." Michael's heart sank a little. He had known this day would come, but he wasn't ready. "Do you want to go back?" he asked softly. Alara didn't answer right away. She looked toward the desert horizon, where the first stars were rising. "Part of me does. It is my home. But another part—" She turned to him, her eyes warm. "Another part has found peace here." Michael nodded slowly. "Maybe home isn't just where you're from. Maybe it's where you're cared for." Alara smiled. "Then I have two homes." That night the sky lit up with a faint shimmer, like silver dust moving across the heavens. Lyra woke up and ran outside. "Mother, look!" she cried. "They're singing again." Michael followed, staring up at the glowing streaks. It was beautiful, quiet and soft, not like a storm or fire, but like a message written in light. Alara's eyes filled with tears. "It's them," she whispered. "Our people." Lyra hugged her mother's arm tightly. "Will they take us?" Alara knelt and kissed her forehead. "Maybe, but if they do, we will carry Earth in our hearts." Then she turned to Michael. "If we must go, I will leave something for you, a promise." He looked at her sadly. "What promise?" "That no kindness is ever lost," she said softly. "It travels across worlds. You gave us safety. We will give your world hope." Michael didn't know what to say. The light above shimmered brighter for a moment, then slowly faded into the stars. The desert grew still again. Lyra looked up one last time. "They said wait," she murmured. "They not ready yet." Alara smiled faintly. "Then we stay a little longer." In the months that followed, no ships came. Life went on. Michael continued his quiet work, and Elara helped him design small energy devices using her knowledge. Together they created machines that worked from sunlight and wind, gentle power that never hurt the earth. People from nearby towns began visiting again, amazed by his inventions. They called him the man who made light from the desert. He never told them the truth. Some secrets were too beautiful to explain. At night, when the world was calm, Elara and Lyra would still look at the stars, whispering softly in their own tongue. Michael would join them, not understanding the words, but feeling their meaning, love, memory, and gratitude. One evening, as they sat together watching the stars rise, Elara spoke softly. "Mikhail," she said, "when I first saw you, I saw a man broken by loss. Now I see a man full of light." He smiled quietly. "Maybe that's because 2 stars landed in my life." Elara laughed softly, a sound like wind through silver leaves. "Then our journey was not an accident. It was a path." Lyra leaned against his shoulder, yawning. "Family," she whispered. "We are family." Michael looked at them both, his heart full. "Yes," he said. "We are." That night, long after they went to sleep, he stepped outside one last time. The stars shone above, calm and endless, and just before dawn, one star moved. A small silver light that crossed the sky slowly, leaving a faint trail behind. He smiled, remembering Elara's words. "Look east before dawn. We will send you light." As the first rays of morning touched the desert, Michael whispered to the wind, "Thank you for finding me." And somewhere above, far beyond the clouds, the stars shimmered in reply, a gentle promise that love once found never truly fades.